let's move to Netflix, where I think they also dropped a worthy addition to their catalog this weekend. Spiderhead. Man, I mean, first of all, we should mention Spiderhead. Is a movie that I think was somewhat anticipated because you get Joseph Kaczynski, who we just saw is
Hmm.
the biggest film of the year with Top Gun Maverick. So someone that we are already talking about. But then you get Miles Teller and Chris Hemsworth and Journey Smollett to
Yeah.
star in it, and you're like, this movie's pretty intriguing, based on a short story which has gotten a lot of acclaim and a lot of notice. So there was all the makings here for this to be good. I think the one drawback I will say is that it does feel a little bit like this was a movie made in COVID, and you can kind of tell because it's like a few characters in like a few spaces, and it feels pretty like bottled up. But I still think the movie really works, and I thought it was still pretty well told. How did you like Spiderhead?
Yeah, I enjoyed it quite a bit. It's not been super critically well received, but I would say it's like super functional. And it's like, yeah, is it like thematically super high level? No, I guess not. It's I think the setup is stronger than the conclusion. We'll say that, but I just kind of really enjoyed being with this Chris Hemsworth performance.
Yeah.
And yeah, even though it's definitely COVID production, this was made at the end of 2020 because Top Gun Maverick had already been completed at that point, of course, as people know. Because it's like set in this prison setting, obviously an atypical prison, but a prison setting. It kind of makes sense the way like things are staged and characters are separated, and we're not seeing too many crowding. Like it didn't bother me that like you can definitely tell that this was made on in just a few rooms basically. Um, and I think Kaczynski, like he just as people I feel like know at this point has a competence that he'll always bring. And I felt like the blocking of this movie, like just visually, looked very impressive for a movie that's completely indoors with very few subjects. So I still liked it quite a bit. I think again I think the Hemsworth performance really is like the star of this because Hemsworth's someone who's been very hit or miss outside of Thor in
Mhm.
terms of making commercial successes. However, I think we've definitely learned time and time again that when Chris Hemsworth's being little more comedic, a little a little off, it's honestly his biggest strength because he can really nail it.
I mean, doesn't this kind of feel like they're taking the turn the Thor character has had in the last few movies, and just kind of like, instead of it being Thor, they're like, you're gonna act like Thor, but just you're gonna be like a smart guy. Like, and then they're
Hmm.
like, you can just be goofy and like fun and like, yeah, I think he's a little bit more cunning than Thor. Obviously,
It's
he's
tech bro.
yeah, he's tech bro with a ulterior motive, and pushing boundaries in a lot of unethical ways, but he's just chilling on every single scene, man. Like, he's just like having the best time. You can kind of tell that he really is enjoying being in this antagonist role. And he really loves, I think, the like broness that he gets to do with Miles Teller in a few of these scenes. Like, I found those scenes really fun to watch when they're on that like Lavactin or whatever the drug was called, and they're like, because
Laffadil was it?
yeah, Laugh-A-Dill, and
That
they're
was the
just like
best name I think of the
giggling.
drugs.
Yeah, they're just giggling to themselves about stupid shit. It's really, really great. Um, it's funny because Hemsworth definitely shines, and you think like, you got Kaczynski and Miles Teller back for this is their third time together in a movie in movies, but Teller's just kind of like driving the plot along, just kind of
Yeah,
telling the story, and I
just
really
the
actually,
dude.
yeah, and I just really like. I almost wanted to just get more of the backstory, like when they would flash back to
Yes.
like him partying in that field. It's like, I'm a lot more interested in what's going on here. Like, what is this bar that they're at,
Hmm.
or this field that they're like having this in? I want to know more. But
Right.
um, yeah, no, I thought Teller was fine. Like, he was just there, kind of.
Yeah, at the end of the day, he just doesn't have like a whole lot to really work with in terms of the what Spiderhead lets him do. Um, Obviously, as Rooster, he had a whole lot more to
Yeah.
communicate. Even if he didn't always have a lot of lines at Top Gun Maverick, he still imbued a lot into that character. But this time around, like you said, I think it's really just kind of moving the plot, being the audience avatar, audience eyes into this very atypical prison situation where the prisoners have freedom of movement and, can get things they want and don't really feel like they're being detained. And once we learn why that is, I think that's what probably my favorite part about like the movie setup overall is just like you get invited into this very unique situation and you start to learn about what's going on. You learn more about Steve Hemsworth's character. And I really think like when we first get exposed to the various drugs they're testing out, a lot of those scenes are really harrowing too, because you really don't know what's going on. And I think the biggest fault with the movie is like that once you kind of like have your handle on what's going on in Spiderhead, the second half or the last third, it just kind of goes where it was going to go and doesn't really elevate any further. But I still thought that setup and that premise was just strong enough and appealing enough that I don't mind that much.
Yeah, I didn't find myself really being too bothered by that, and even if the ending I think was a bit like kind of sloppy and just like not as satisfying as I wanted it to be. Just like you have so much fun. Like I thought Tellers and Journey Smollett had some nice scenes together, and she gets a couple scenes near the end, especially to kind of like
Mm,
show off some of her chops. Obviously we've talked about her a bit in Birds of Prey and Lovecraft Country, so she's a star who's kind of on the upward trend. But yeah, the poop poop hands is like a fun like
yeah,
running joke through this, and like kind of trying to figure out who that is. Kind of just seeing the setup of this prison experiment and like the freedom that they have and like the roles that they're doing, I thought was kind of fun. And I think obviously it's like it asks interesting questions that I think obviously are unsettling and unethical, but like especially when they're doing like the love actin drug at the beginning, and
yeah.
there's like this like pseudo sex scenes that you see. It's kind of like it definitely is a lot more fun to be with that, and they start bringing in the dark whatever it's called,
Dark
and
of Phil or something. Yeah,
yeah, it's that's when things kind of start to lose you a little bit. But
totally.
um yeah, I thought overall, I just was thinking about Netflix movies, and this feels like probably one of the better ones to like just go back to and like just throw on and just be like, this is a solid film.
Yeah, totally. Because like if you kind of like remove the like movies that like Netflix is kind of like shelled out for more tours, like your Romas and your Marriage Stories and your Irishmans, like those types, which are all great. In terms of like the more like true like hashtag Netflix movie, like it's like this and like Triple Frontier. Like I think about in the same way. It's like these are just like really competent, and if Netflix made it easier for people to see this and distinguish this from anything else on their platform, more people would probably be excited about it. It is fascinating to kind of analyze like where the Netflix movie phenomenon is these days. Because if you look at their top 10, it's always movies that were previously theatrically released by major studios. Oftentimes, movies that were not well received, but just kind of random movies that have seemingly additional cachet to the average Netflix viewer because they probably saw the commercial back in the day or the poster and then never saw it. And like, oh, I'll check it out now. Whereas Spiderhead, they have no fucking idea what this is. Um,
Right.
but I wish they did because I actually think it's pretty good.
I know they almost need a category that's like B movies or something like that, where it's just like this isn't the Irishmen's or the Romas, but this is like the next best thing that we have.
Yeah.
I don't know. Definitely check out Spiderhead if you have Netflix. This is probably one of the better original things you're going to get from them.